Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Tori Tasker, Roadmaps Manager from the Australian Space Agency. Forgive me for being a little bit echoey, but I won't be speaking for too long, and then we will be handing over to some of our expert panelists today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. The Adelaide team, where I am today, on the land of the Kaurna people, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Welcome to today's information session on Earth Observation, our Earth Observation Roadmap, which was published late last year. Today, I am also joined by Ord Vinyals, our Chief Technology Officer, Arvind Ramana, Reese Bitterscombe, Catherine Bennell from the agency's Chief Technology Office. We're also joined by guest panellists David Hudson from Geoscience Australia and Agnes Lane from the Bureau of Meteorology. And just to note, our session today will be recorded and distributed on our various agency digital platforms. And after this session, we will have a question and answer session. And you can join this conversation by visiting slido.com and entering the event code #EarthObservation, as you can see on the slides right now. The first part of our webinar will run for about 45 minutes, and then we'll head on to the next sessions, the next elements of our session today. If we could just pop to the next slide for us, Arvind. Thank you very much. At the end of our session, we will have an industry pitch where we will hear from 11 organisations within the Earth observation sector. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Chief Technology Officer of the Australian Space Agency, Ord Vinyals, to the virtual stage. Over to you, Ord.
Thank you very much, Tori. Everybody can hear me? Yes? No? Okay. Thumbs up. Excellent. So welcome all. I'm very excited today to welcome you to listen to the second webinar, second roadmap that has been published after the communication services technology that we've published a year ago. The robotics and automation one is coming soon as a webinar, probably in April. So thank you for coming and listening to us. Also excited because it's a new format today. As Tori has indicated, we want to promote some of our local capabilities in Earth observation. So make sure you stay until the end. Looking forward to this new format. And last but not least, this webinar is following an historical day after the announcement of yesterday, where Australia is embarking in the first national space mission in Earth observation. So this webinar could not be more timely, and I will now hand over to you, Reese and Arvind, to go through the roadmap. Thank you and enjoy. I'll actually hand over to Catherine, sorry, Catherine, to go through the roadmap methodology. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ord. You may all recall that in 2019, we released our civil space strategy. And in that, we highlighted 7 areas of priority in our strategy where Australia has the opportunity to grow a national space capability. And the purpose of the roadmaps is aligned with that. It's to foster an aligned, connected and informed Australian space sector that is united behind shared visions for each civil space priority area and clear pathways to meet our ambitions. The roadmaps are and will continue to be the foundation for the agency's strategic implementation via our activities, programs and missions into the future. So they're given significant thought and attention, and every word in them is purposeful and intended. Now, following on from the civil space strategy, we're focusing on areas we can build a sustainable activity based on competitive advantage. That is, playing into gaps or customer needs with strengths. And these gaps or needs can be Australian or international. So we came up with a list of criteria that a capability must satisfy to be included on a roadmap. An included capability must strive towards bold visions and ambitions that align with the strategy and have the potential to synergize with other selected capabilities to uplift the sector in an enduring manner and be based on a comparative or competitive advantage and/or be an area of national strategic interest or be a necessary input to realize another included capability, even if that input itself is not a competitive advantage. Now, we do recognise, of course, that over the course of a whole decade or more, new national needs, new opportunities, and new disruptive tech may emerge. Therefore, we will revisit the roadmaps periodically and adjust them according to these criteria, which will remain constant into the future. Different combinations of these criteria do call for differing levels of public and private sector facilitation. And these roadmaps are developed in collaboration with the whole space sector. And we feel that it's the initiative of the entire space sector together that will drive the pursuit and capture of our identified opportunities. So if we move to the next slide now. Just wait a moment, thank you. You'll see a diagram here we call the roadmaps nexus. Because each roadmap doesn't exist in isolation, they're all interconnected. They're reliant on cross-cutting technology areas that critically underpin our competitive advantage. They are facilitated by non-technical enabling capabilities at the bottom there, which we call facilitators, which are the ecosystem builders and what enables progress towards reaching the targeted capabilities. And they may be applied to cross-cutting services, which you see there on the right, where we think there is the greatest opportunity for our space sector to apply these technologies and capabilities moving forward. So if we move to the next slide now, this talks about the chronological development approach for each roadmap. And the approach to build up the roadmaps was something we developed in order to ensure a consistent, evidence-based approach to our technical strategy. They focus on, first of all, the today. We assess opportunity and say, where is Australia today? Where are we in the global context as well? And as look at the markets and needs within Australia. Phase 2 is about the targets and looking for the tomorrow, the decadal timeframe, and saying, where should Australia be? What do we need then? What could we do then in a sensible way? Phase 3 is about planning the path between the two. And then phase 4 is about going forward and implementing that, not just writing up the roadmap, but also into the future, implementing and updating it. And this was developed, the content of the roadmap is developed in consultation across the entire sector. So we have feedback and support to the validation of assessments of Australia's state-of-the-art capabilities, technologies and opportunities by peer space agencies and stakeholder organisations. But the EO roadmap particularly benefited from close consultation across government and with many of you in the audience today, multiple government departments, international agencies, more than 10 universities, industry broadly and the states and territories. And we're so grateful to all of you for helping us to create this product. And we're very pleased today to showcase and explain the roadmap to you, which has already been so impactful, as many of you would have seen last night. So over to Reese, who led the development of this roadmap, supported by Arvin, to take you through it in more detail.
Thanks, Catherine. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the EO specific part of the EO roadmap. So as Catherine pointed out, there is quite a process behind this. We didn't just sit around and come up with our great ideas. There's a lot of rigor behind it, and what I'm about to present is the outcome of all that rigor. So it's really important to situate this in terms of national need, and so understanding the value of it to Australians is critical. So one aspect is it's worth a lot in a global sense, $2.7 trillion, and half of that's in our APEC region. But the true impact of it is really what it teaches us about our world and what we can understand to help manage things, especially things like climate change. Also for Australia, we are a very large, geographically large nation with hardly any people in it. And if you extend out to our exclusive economic zone and then our maritime search and rescue area, we cover a huge amount of the world. And space-based EO is a great way to be able to reach out and touch or understand what's happening across that vast territory. The Australian EO space sector in Australia specifically contributed a significant amount of money last year, in 2020, to our economy as well. So it's absolutely critical to our economy, noting that apart from the direct impact, it has an indirect impact of supporting another $2.5 billion worth of economic activity. Next slide, please. A little side note here around the scope of our EO roadmap. I'll be the first to, somewhat slightly embarrassed to admit that early on in the piece, because we were working with largely a spatial community, and that's my background as well, the roadmap as it was originally thought of really moved into the spatial space. And after a while, we realised, hang on, this is an Australian space EO roadmap, or EO from space. And so we made a conscious decision to refine the focus segments and make sure the scope was around those space-based systems that support the spatial community. And so that's what this little diagram, it's in the what is EO component of the roadmap itself, if you download it and have a look there. So it's about the satellites, everyone's interested in that, but the other critical elements as well, the ground segment that stays in touch with them, and then the storage elements that actually make that data available to what we call the downstream. And you'll see a little note there, data ready for analysis. Yeah, we're not getting into the whole what is ARD, but as close to ready as possible so that the downstream can then take that and deliver the value of EO, because that, you know, what this roadmap is about, its scope, doesn't actually deliver any value into the economy. It's the downstream part that does it, and that's really important. So even though we've kept the spatial side out of this roadmap, it's actually so important because it provides the needs signals that the collection systems in, you know, doing Earth observations from space need to ensure they're delivering the right stuff. Next slide. So where are we now? As a nation, we've been engaged with Earth observation from space since Landsat started. However, we still rely entirely upon other nations and foreign companies for all the EO data that we've got. However, we can make valuable contributions back into those systems, into the global observing systems, by looking at what we can do uniquely and help ensure that that data is still delivering value to us. We think we found some specific market gaps, particularly around water quality and also bushfire fuel loads. There's a particular kind of forest in Australia that we found gaps in the global sensing systems. Our spatial expertise is globally acknowledged. We're very, very good at making do, or fusing and or integrating, depending on how you like to interpret those words, pulling all that data together to deliver great value out of it. We're really, really good at that. So we need to acknowledge that and ensure we continue to do that, and note that it will identify great ideas going forward. And then making sure that we secure our role as we go forward. Next slide. So we've got a statement here of the space sector priorities for Earth observation in Australia, Earth observation from space. And the top one is basically saying we want to build our own satellites. The second one is build on that work as a data integrator through our roles in international bodies, and we're CEOS and GEO are those big ones. And then we want to ensure that we can still access globally provided EO data for our economy, simply because we can build all the satellites we want, but it would take many decades to be able to recreate the sort of capability that's represented by the likes of Sentinel and Landsat, to just name two. So we've got to make sure we've got really good quid pro quos and embed ourselves into those international EO data supply chains, for want of a better phrase. Next slide, please. So our vision is that EO data will increasingly be used, and I'd add in there, increasingly understood to be used for the Australian community through a whole range of things, and they're all listed out there. You can read that in the document as well. But also that it will be informed by the needs of the spatial data community, as I was saying before. So make sure EO from space data is well used and well acknowledged for being used, and that it is informed, the data that is captured and the systems that are designed is informed by the spatial community. Next slide. And so our ambition is to do that, to fill that gap, to complement all the ground infrastructure we've got, the great research, our great calibration and validation capabilities, our data management, with the ability to make satellites. And then the second part of that, it's like a two-speed ambition. Then the second part of there is ensuring that our science community is engaged with the rest of the world, moving people back with, bringing people on shore, sending people overseas, where we get those great ideas and able to pull that all together inside to meet our needs. Next slide. And so we have 5 focus segments. I'm only going to present the first one, and then we've got our other partners. And I actually wanted to make a shout out to that as well. It got noted a little bit earlier, but the Australian Space Agency led this. However, this could not have worked without some broad help from a lot of stuff, and we've got some slides right at the end there. Various universities, peak bodies, all sorts of things have had a lot of input and worked very closely with us in those technical advisory groups. But in particular, I've got to shout out to CSIRO, Geoscience Australia, and the Bureau of Met, and Defence, which is where I was from when we actually did this work. So, and so to that end, we've got presenters from some of the other agencies to do the last, or all but the first one. So next slide. So this is really the highlight, and if you are following budget announcements and then the myriad articles that were released last night, we're doing this. However, what we're doing isn't going to be everything in this, and so this EO missions and payloads focus segment is really important. And what we're saying we want to do by the end of the decade, have the ability to be able to design, qualify, operate, and dispose of our own satellite systems to do Earth observation. And the outcomes there are basically all the things that show that we can actually do it. So we've got the industry to actually do it. We've got the government capacity to do it, because government as a customer has been acknowledged by the government through the Modern Manufacturing Initiative, and also in this roadmap as well. The quantum of dollars required to get industry over the startup humps only comes from government. And so we need to be a good customer. We need to understand our role. We can't just write a check and say, make it happen. We've got to have, teams of experts that understand how to do it and can write the right requirements so the industry can deliver what is needed in an innovative way and let them do what they do best to meet the needs. We want to have those manufacturing capabilities in place, and they can become available to other space things as well. Because if we build everything for EO, there's a lot of overlap there that if not the direct sizing and function of particular satellites, but a lot of it is translatable. And that the last point there is that the industry meets its decadal objectives. Next slide, please. So the priority missions we've called out, and maybe surprise, surprise, the first one is satellite cross-calibration radiometry. So really what that does, the idea is if you've got gold standard things like Landsat, and then you've got other ones with lower levels of calibration and validation applied, that we can take the gold standard and apply it to the others. And so you fly another mission that does coincident observations, first with the gold standard, and then with the other systems. And basically you can sort of say, is what the gold standard is seeing same as the other ones, and it can figure out the delta, and then that other data set can then be incorporated with the first one. That just broadens our access and the utility of all the different collection systems on orbit. So really, it's a really cool mission, and it's very niche in that it sort of meets our industry where it is. It's a bit of a stretch from where our industry currently is, but not an insurmountable stretch, and then moves us along that path. National water quality monitoring. So that's really important to Australia, obviously, because of water. One of the unique things we've noticed is that the ability to collect all the right band wavelengths to understand cyanobacteria in particular, and then in our smaller waterways, presents some challenges to the existing system. So there are two examples of some niche things, and there's a third one as well coming up: bushfire load monitoring. So turns out live eucalypt forests dry off, and the spectral returns of the systems on orbit don't really give us a great insight to that. That's pretty important for us, for our nation, thinking of the Black Summer. So a mission that can help us understand that is really, really important. Operational meteorological data, absolutely critical as well. We're all impacted by the work of the Bureau, like every day, whether we realize it or not. The logistics systems on which our nation depends needs that weather data and so on. So planes, trucks, shipping all require that weather data. So immediate impacts if that sort of thing gets switched off, let alone the ability to know if it's going to rain at the footy on Sunday night. So, and then the last one, early on, I called it a big maritime area. The ability to understand what's going on inside our regions of responsibility is critical. So they're those missions, priority purposes that we're calling out for the purposes of the roadmap. And that box there is basically saying they're all the bits and pieces that you need to be able to deliver a mission, right from project and program management down to international supply chain. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Dave Hudson from Geoscience Australia.
Thank you, Reese. So before I start, firstly, I'd like to really thank the ASA for pulling together this roadmap, and also the partnership we've got between ASA, Geoscience Australia, the Bureau of Meteorology, CSIRO, and Defence on the National Mission. We're really excited to be part of this program and really pleased to be helping present this roadmap. So data quality assurance and integrity monitoring is a really key area for Australia, where we've got some fantastic, globally recognised advantages in our geography. To our knowledge, Australia is the only continent scale country on Earth which represents every single landform on Earth. What that means is, when you incorporate in our Antarctic claim, any type of Earth observation product from any type of Earth observation satellite can be tested in Australia. It can be validated in Australia. And that gives us an opportunity to punch above our weight internationally. And so the ambition we're going for here is around trying to have full spectrum capabilities in calibration and validation, as they're traditionally known, which we're more broadly referring to as data quality assurance and integrity monitoring. That includes going and characterizing instruments on the ground, calibrating and cross-calibrating data sets in space, vicarious calibration and validation of Earth observation products from ground sites, such as the corner reflector you can see in the photo. And at the end of that process, actually trying to put an authoritative stamp on there saying, we understand that this satellite is operating on spec or off spec. We essentially have a quality stamp which allows our users, be they governments or private sector or researchers, to understand what they're using. In the later few slides, we'll see some additional studies. On this focus segment alone, there is a dedicated additional study you'll be able to look up, which is called AusCalVal, and that'll be in the future slides, but you'll be able to Google that and get that additional detail. Next slide, please. So enhanced data management. This is really an area where Australia has existing recognised globally leading expertise. And so we've got a whole series of fantastic initiatives like the Bureau of Meteorology's numerical weather prediction system and their huge data assimilation activity there. We've got the Open Data Cube activity, which is now being used in over 100 countries. And we've even got data management activities, such as the partnership between the Commonwealth Government and the state and territories around the Australasian Copernicus Data Hub, where we pull petabytes of European space data into our region. So our objective here really is trying to maintain that position, build on that position, that leadership position, and make sure that we're able to scale for the huge amount of data that's headed our way. Also in this space, there's huge opportunities around the artificial intelligence and machine learning space, which connect into that previous data quality assurance space, where essentially that's a key source of training data that we'll see in these data management systems in the coming decade. Thank you. Now over to Agnes Lane from the Bureau.
Agnes sends her apologies today for not being present, but she has sent through her recording and she'll be virtually present. I'm going to start playing her recording for the next two focus segments.
This segment 4 is about strengthening existing international partnerships and building new connections that will enable the transfer of knowledge to support industry, innovation and growth. The Australian Earth observation, science and research community has long-standing international partnerships that enable Australian collaborations in various EO science missions, including through mission and payload development, calibration and validation activities, and data management expertise. The Australian government also has formed numerous partnerships with global EO networks. CSIRO has bilateral agreements with ESA and CNES and operates a 10% capacity share of UK Novasar 1. GA has a long-standing partnership with the USGS, and the Bureau has long-standing close working partnerships with several meteorological agencies, including the Japan Meteorological Agency and NOAA. By uplifting international partnerships, we'll strengthen our ability to develop sophisticated scientific mission concepts. We'll participate in more science teams and identify technology transfer and supply chain opportunities with international partners. And we'll have the ability to better identify appropriate technology to translate from research to operational status. Focus segment 5. The Australian Earth observations community currently access satellite data through mechanisms such as commercial data resellers, direct acquisition from commercial EO missions, legal or technical partnerships, and international obligations and treaties. At the Bureau of Meteorology, we use data from around 30 different international satellites, and most of these are made available freely and openly under the data policy of the World Meteorological Organization. The size, complexity, and cost of the large science-grade EO satellite systems, like the meteorological NOAA and METOP series, and the higher resolution Landsat and Sentinel missions, are unlikely to be replaced by Australian missions. Further to that, in the case of meteorology, no single country can provide all the satellite observations required to understand weather and climate. So Australia will remain reliant upon international missions for the supply of EO data. Australia can, however, deliver technical solutions that would secure access to international data. Initiatives such as ground segment technologies and dedicated tasking arrangements will ensure that Australia's EO community has access to a full range of EO data for a broad range of applications and users.
Thank you, Agnes. So with that, we've covered up the international partnerships and leaderships and the access to international data focus segments. So we had a story behind the roadmap, and the story was about the end-to-end utilization of data, how to create high quality data, and how to get it down to the end user for in a usable format. So there are chats about video that played earlier having audio issues. Did the rest of the panel hear it, or it is just some of the users who didn't have an audio playing?
I think that was some of the user. It was fine for me.
Okay, so the users who didn't have the audio playing, we will make sure that we will send the recordings to you after this presentation, and the slides will also be available for you to utilize. So yeah, I'll keep progressing for the sake of time. Okay, so the way all the focus segments sit with each other forms the focus segment nexus, or the lawn that connects all together. So we generate good quality data from the Australian space assets, and then assure that the data is good and quality controlled and trusted. Improving the trust in the EO data's availability and EO data's quality is critical in encouraging end users to amp up the utilization. So that is a critical focus segment. Once we have good quality data, we make it easier for it to be stored and easier for the users to access it. That's the third focus segment. And like Reese mentioned, though we are going to be generating our own EO data from space, it's also critical that we continue contributing and continue be a part of the global observing system and be a part of international partnerships that have served our data needs and will continue to serve our data needs in the near future and forever, because that's critical. And finally, we ensure that we contribute more into international EO governing bodies and contribute more to international science research and science and research engagements. In that way, we are valued partners, we are wanted, and we are liked. So that is the whole intention of the roadmap. Okay, So during the creation of the roadmap, we also made sure that we put in the efforts into the facilitators section of the roadmap. The roadmap is not just about the technical aspects and the goals and objectives. It's also about what the government needs to do to make it realizable and make it feasible for the industry to follow along, because it's all a whole team. Yeah, we are team EO, and it's important to make sure that we all play our part. And the Australian government will continue to work across the sector to grow the economy and create jobs by ensuring the conditions are right. We will continue to invest, and we will continue to investigate investment and policy to make sure that the EU objectives are met. We will make sure the governance and coordination to help the EU sector are set right, with the right balance between regulations and the right balance between innovation. We will make sure that the industry resilience, workforce, and skill needs are met, because without skilled technicians, skilled graduates, and skilled researchers, there is no space missions or no space sector development. So making sure that our space tradies and space engineers are available for the industry to use will be a key goal that the agency will play a part in. Finally, it comes down to the end users and the public. Without our social license and making sure that we are doing sustainable development, none of this makes sense, because at the end of the day, we have one Earth and we need to keep it livable. Okay, we move on to the pathway section. So the pathway section is like a little map that takes us from where we are today to where we wanted to be in the next decade. And as we develop the focus segment, we realize that there's going to be a lot of details in this, and a lot of these details are going to be keeping on iterating over the next decade, because we cannot predict the speed at which the technology is going to develop. So a lot of this will be fluid. We will make sure that we revisit it periodically, of course, with the industry, and we make sure that we keep it updated. So the amount of detail in this will not let us go through all of it today, but I would encourage the participants to go through the focus segments in as much detail as possible, because every little box in this is purposely placed, and there are intentions behind it that validate why they are placed in certain ways. To the far left here are the market opportunities and drivers that are, like, for example, those are the international missions which we could play a part in. And towards the last section here is the 2030 and beyond, where we would expect our industry capability to meet various mission application areas. Like Reese mentioned earlier, that include weather, water quality monitoring, shallow water mapping, and various other applications, including science. So please do reach out to us if you want to have a deep dive into the pathways, and we are always happy to engage with the industry and with the research sector and the stakeholders in the community there. So for the sake of time, I will keep progressing the pathways for focus segments 2 and 3, focus segment 3 and 4, and finally the facilitator part of the pathways, which include the discussion about investment and policy, regulation standards, governance and coordination, and what the agency does for industry resilience, workforce, and skills. Finally, for social license and sustainability, which underpins all of this efforts. So we identified the focus segments, we identified the pathways for the team EO to reach the goals identified in the focus segments, and it is all about setting the conditions for the 2030s. It is critically important to create and sustain a capable STEM workforce, because that underpins all the space sector development and all the technology development in the country. It will be the agency's goal, and it will be the agency's goal to work with the EU sector to identify and support new remote sensing technology areas that include, for example, quantum sensing, promote a nationwide coordination activity for EU data utilization that was explained in some of the focus segments, promote and develop calibration, validation, or ScalVal initiatives so that the data is trusted and utilized more, explore and promote advanced technology areas, including quantum tech, blockchains, and optical comms for facilitating a better EO data storage and data transfer. Continue to identify and invest in spin out and spin in technology opportunities from the adjacent sectors. because that is a critical area that will help sustain the businesses and identify and support the industry in opportunities to enter international supply chain. Because as we mentioned, international supply chain is critical for the sector growth, and we will continue to support it. So David mentioned earlier that the roadmap isn't complete without its accompanying publications, and we would recommend the audience to go through the accompanying publications, which are all publicly available. It starts with a lot of publications from the agency in the past, including the Civil Space Strategy, publications from the Defense and Space Command on the Force Structure Plan and strategic updates, publication from the Academy of Science on its strategic plan for science, space science. State and territories have their space strategies, which we consulted very heavily during the roadmap development. SmartSat-CIRC's Space and Spatial Industry Growth Roadmap, which was a critical part in the development of our roadmap as well. So the list is big, but there's valuable information in there which the industry will find useful to engage with. So with that, I will pass to Reese to discuss the next steps.
Thanks, Arvind. So as we move forward with the roadmap, hopefully there will be feedback, good and bad. We want to hear it all, and we will iterate the roadmap. The frequency of that, I couldn't pin ourselves down to, but we've talked maybe every few years, as it probably it would be done on requirement. Always further consultation, as Arv was just saying. There's lots of people to talk to, and we're always open, always available for a phone call. If not immediately, we'll schedule in as soon as we possibly can. The third point there, it's a catalyst for us implementation, and the events of last night really highlight the truth of that, and we'll talk a little bit about this National Space Mission for Earth Observation in a bit. We want to work with people to drive implementation of things. So, as we said, our hope and the plan behind these things is that having a clear roadmap and those pathways charts that Arv was working through before will help give us a common focus and drive that vision forward so that we know what we're working on together. And regardless of where the funding sources come from, we've got the basis of many business cases right here in the roadmap. So it's a great place to collaborate on and then move forward from that position. Yeah, regular technical advisory group and stakeholder meetings. That's something we're going to have to kick back off with the EO roadmap. In all honesty, we've been rather sidetracked the last while with this National Space Mission, getting all of that work done. But nonetheless, as we said earlier, periodic roadmap updates. And yes, please reach out. We're always open. Next slide, please. So the next big step. Last night, it was announced. Oh, sorry, it was not announced. It came out in the in many reports and in the various budget papers that we're going to do our first ever National Space Mission. So it's a historic moment for us. We're really excited. Everyone is kind of beside themselves and almost wondering if it's still real, because we actually want to do a bunch of these things. And before we were saying the roadmap as a catalyst for something, absolutely. The work out of the roadmap gave us a bunch of ideas, and the group around the table, a while ago thought that we can really make something out of this. And so that's the second point there. There's $1.2 billion over a number of years to actually do something. And so there's going to be 4 satellites built. Now for satellite cross-calibration radiometry, someone did report cross-collaboration. Maybe that's a special kind of collaboration, but this is all about calibration, as we were talking about before. And we're going to do it. It's going to be Australian designed, built, and operated. That's a big challenge for us, but it does reinforce our commitment to growing the space capability. So if I sort of step aside a little bit, the Modern Manufacturing Initiative has space as one of its pillars. This is the proof of that. And absolutely, it's going to be an investment now and for the future of our space sector. So doing this kicks off so many things. It kicks off government as being a customer. It kicks off industry informing up and being able to respond to the needs of government. And as we said, big focus there on the Australian-made aspect of it also, bringing together and having that delivered by us. Next slide. We've got a cool video done. hopefully this works.
What we can see from way up there can make all the difference down here. Earth observation satellites are central to our everyday life, from forecasting the weather and responding to natural disasters through to managing the environment and supporting our farmers. That's why the Australian government is investing almost $1.2 billion into our first ever national space mission. Phase 1 will see Australia design, build and operate 4 new Earth observation satellites. This mission will make Australia more self-sufficient, while also growing capability that will set up our space industry for future success. So not only are we keeping Australians safe and secure, we're creating jobs, both for today and for generations to come.
So yeah, this is going to help our economic recovery. We've estimated, or not we ourselves, but experts have estimated we're going to create 500 odd jobs and probably about 100 companies involved in the supply of things for this national mission. Australian Space Agency is going to lead it, but in very close partnership with Geoscience Australia, CSIRO and the Bureau, and Defence, of course, and starting 24-25. So we've got a lot of work to do between now and then, and it's going to be a busy, fun, challenging, and highly rewarding time, not just for ourselves, but for our nation, bringing something new. So next slide. So I just want to close off with a couple of words around the big picture of it. So as a space agency, we love doing stuff in space. Spatial people love playing with the data, and there's so many cool things that make our life easier. But the really big picture is the world is changing. We are living with the impacts of this on a daily basis, and few nations are as impacted as Australia. Shout out to our Pacific neighbours though, who are worrying about water levels. We have a whole lot of other things about fire, drought in particular, and then those broader uses we've got about maintaining our national security, understanding what's going on in our broader world. EO is the best technology to help us do all of those things. Understanding climate and doing all the rest of it. It's absolutely a critical technology, and we commend this roadmap to you as being a way for us to combine our thoughts and our efforts as a nation to delivering on those 5 focus segments for our country. So that's all we have from there. I'm going to pass over to Tori. We'll take us through the last part.
Fantastic. All right, we will jump straight into our industry showcase. We have 11 different organisations here to present to us, so thank you all very much for your time in advance. And we will be sharing your slides for you, so no need to worry about that. So we will kick off with Symbios.
Morning, everybody. Stephen Ward here. You can hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Great. Well, first of all, congrats to everyone. I know how much work's gone into that, so that's fantastic news from last night. So Symbios provides above-the-line advice to Earth observation programs around the world. Earth observation is basically our business. We specialize in international engagement. We've been doing it for 30 years. We work in CEOS, GEO, AP, RSAF. We first wrote the Earth Observation Handbook, which is what we like to refer to as the Bible, for the Rio Conference in '92. And we're still writing it 30 years later. We're the only authors of that. We also maintain the CEOS missions database. We survey every space agency around the world annually. You can find that online. What we try and do is bring all that connection and expertise to Australia for the benefit of our programs here. Things like the Open Data Cube, the Global Forest Observations Initiative, supporting the Vietnamese EO industry, analysis-ready data strategies, Digital Earth Africa. We know how to get a stage internationally for Australia ambitions, and we know how to make it work and present it, and we've tried to do that to the benefit of the national programs. There's a whole list of things that we're supporting there: CNES, ESA, JAXA, NASA, USGS at the moment. I called out CalVal, which is quite timely for the announcement last night. It's an Australian strength. We helped formulate the AusCalVal concept 3 years ago, and we also co-authored the 2021 report that you can find online and pictured below. We currently support the CEOS Working Group on CalVal chair. And again, we look to bring our international agency contacts and know-how for the benefit of our programs like SDR, like Aquawatch. And for example, I proposed this Carval Space Bridge project because I knew it would be timely. I didn't realize quite how timely with the announcement last night, but that includes cooperation with the UK on things like SI traceability stats, which includes SDR and their Truce mission, an EU data integrity framework, and new space support from public infrastructure like AusCalVar. So that's it in a nutshell. I think I kept to the minute.
You did. Thank you very much, Stephen, for keeping us on track and to sharing everything you're working on with us. Next, we'll head into SpaceLink. Are you on the line?
I am indeed. So I'm James Pryor. I'm the General Manager of Space Systems within EOS Space Systems. So SpaceLink is an EOS space business that will deliver a MEO constellation for near real-time data relay. It's designed to transfer continuous high-volume data from LEO spacecraft, and it simplifies licensing and terrestrial network issues and is ideally suited for Earth observation, human flight, on-orbit servicing, and government use cases. SpaceLink consists of 4 satellites in a MEO orbit. Data transfer from LEO to MEO is optical, and so is the MEO to MEO transfer. But the MEO to ground link is RF through a network of 3 gateway sites in Australia, in California, and Hawaii, with more to follow in the Middle East and Europe. Key features include continuous connectivity, low latency communications, individual link speeds from 100 megabytes to 10 gigabit per second speeds, and total network capacity in excess of 100 gigabits per second. Carriage from LEO spacecraft directly to gateways in selected countries as possible, and high levels of security are fundamental to the delivery of this service. Our current global partners include NASA, Axiom Space, SDA, OHB, and Mynaric. And SpaceLink represents key infrastructure for space users and will be operational in 2024. That's SpaceLink in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Thank you for also keeping to time and sharing everything you've got there with us. Fantastic. We'll head on to LatConnect 60. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Tori. Thank you very much. This is Ruben. I'm co-founder of LatConnect 60. LatConnect 60 is based in Western Australia, and its prime objective is to provide Earth observation insights at scale. We do this by addressing the key pain points across the data value chain and integrating data acquisition, fusion, analytics, and insights derivation. We work collaboratively and have a growing Australian partner network to help deliver solutions for specific market needs quickly and cost-effectively. What we have currently is exclusive access to a high-resolution imaging, multispectral imaging satellite that we task right here in Perth, and other satellite data through partners. What we are currently doing is deploying our plantation analytics service to a wide agriculture and state government client base nationally and internationally. What we are doing next is developing a high-resolution, hyperspectral satellite to be launched towards the end of 2024 to provide additional value in agri and defense markets. That's LatConnect in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Do we have anyone from our Lula on the line? I don't think we do today. That is okay. As you can see, there is sliders on the screen there. We'll move straight into our next presenter from Frontier SI. Are you on the line?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Frontier SI is a not-for-profit geospatial research agency, and we represent over 30 organisations across government, academia, and industry. Our role is to deliver solutions to common challenges faced by government and industry, and we do this by formulating, brokering, facilitating, and managing collaborative research for and with our partners. In the space sector, we are involved in both upstream and downstream activities, and you can see examples of this given on the slide. As Australia has developed its Earth observation roadmap, we have been working alongside government to lead the development of the AusCalVar report with our partners Symbios, GEO, and also the CSIRO. And we have also been working to deliver the Australia-UK Space Bridge project with Symbios. My role is currently leading the research project development with the CRC and CSIRO for the Aquawatch space mission. And we have been working alongside the SmartSat partners as well as the CSIRO to deliver the operations and mission development for that mission. Frontier SI aims to support government, research and industry to implement and develop Australia's national space mission. And we're very excited about this historic moment for the Australian Earth observation community. Congratulations to all those involved.
Thanks very much, Jasmine. Next, we'll head into the Swinburne University of Technology. Do we have you with us?
Yes, thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm Professor Kachi, Deputy Director of Swinburne Space Technology and Industry Institute. Our institute has world-leading R&D capabilities and rich experiences relevant to Earth observation. On the upstream end, our institute's Space Instrumentation Engineering Group, led by Professor Peter Moore, has been providing ongoing capability towards building a pipeline of global EO instrumentation missions for the German Aerospace Center. And we're the only Australian university called on to assist in building a commercially successful EO mission with them. On the downstream side, we have been innovating and applying cutting-edge AI techniques for analyzing and interpreting EO data, with technical achievements including machine learning-assisted land cover mapping, deep learning-based ground chain detection, and super resolving low-resolution imagery for EO data quality enhancement. In recent years, we have been intensively collaborating with industry on a range of national-scale EO-related projects covering bushfire detection, vegetation management, precision agriculture, and water leak detection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will head straight into our next one from Earth Observation Australia Incorporated.
Hello. Yes, sorry. Hello, I'm Megan Lewis, President of Earth Observation Australia. Earth Observation Australia is a collaboration and coordination hub for all people who collect and use EO data in Australia. Work to connect and coordinate the sector, government, research, education, industry, and non-government organisations. We're growing rapidly with over 660 individual members. Our activities are driven by our forward-looking 10-year Australian Earth Observation Community Plan, which was developed through extensive consultation. The plan is closely aligned with and contributes to all of the focus segments in the Australian Space Agency EO roadmap. Our mission is to connect, coordinate and collaborate within the Australian EO community to establish a consistent vision and to advocate for EO in Australia and internationally. To secure Australia's role in the international Earth observation community, to develop, support and sustain trained EO professionals and quality infrastructure, to ensure that Australian EO producers and users can readily access the data and services that they need, and to generate value by strengthening end user engagement and supporting commercial EO activity. So we look forward to contributing to developing the roadmap and playing our part in bringing its aspirations to reality. Congratulations, everybody, on getting us to this stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Lewis. Next, we are excited to welcome the Australian Research Data Commons. Over to you.
Thanks, Tori. Good morning, everyone. My name is Myra Cheng. I'll provide a brief overview of the ARDC, followed by one example of our work. The ARDC is a transformational initiative that enables the Australian research community and industry access to nationally significant e-research infrastructure and collections of high-quality data. This slide sets out our purpose, our mission, and the 4 key themes which guide our activities and programs. An example of our work is a co-investment initiative to construct the Australian Scalable Drone Cloud. This project aims to establish a national ecosystem for drone data management. It is designed to offer competitive advantage for researchers through the ability to deliver near real-time information from live drone-acquired data. My colleagues and I are happy to elaborate on our work and address questions in the Q&A session. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Myra. Next, we have Spiral Blue. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tori. So Spiral Blue is working to make Earth observation data more accessible. This means lower cost, faster turnaround, as well as having to deal with, or not having to deal with raw data where possible, and instead deal with information, which is ultimately what we believe industries, government and defense benefit from most in Earth observation. The way we're doing this is with our space edge computing technology, which is capable of processing Earth observation data on the satellite and then sending it down in processed format, and thereby being able to help that satellite be much more efficient with its downlink and potentially achieve an increase of up to 20 times in coverage, and thus, hopefully a more effective mission. So that's us. We've launched space edge computers on 3 satellites so far, and look forward to launching many more as we continue our flight testing program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and absolute kudos to everyone for sticking to time so far. Thank you very much. Next, we have Esper Satellites. Are you with us?
Hi there. Thanks, Roy. My name's Shoaib. I'm the CEO at Esper Satellites. We're a company that's building hyperspectral imaging systems for Earth observation from satellites. So we've been building this technology in-house for the past 3 years, and we're specifically focusing on 3 industries. One is agriculture, where we're specifically looking at nutrients within the soil and in crops. The second is mining, where we're looking to explore rare earth metals within the ground. And the third is climate science, where we're specifically looking at methane emissions as well as carbon sequestration within larger biomasses. So we've been building this imaging technology all the way from the optics to the sensor side of things within the in-house with some of our manufacturing abroad. And we've been doing a lot of our business development internationally with around $103 million in commitments that we do have. And we're going to be launching 2 of our imaging systems within the next 12 months. But in 2023, we're starting to build our flagship systems, which we call the Esperocos, to finally have a full 18 satellite constellation by 2025. We aim to use this data to supercharge a lot of the commercial industries, but we're specifically focused on climate use cases and to see how, and we're essentially looking to build an ECG monitor for the entire Earth. But yeah, that's what we do, and thanks for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thanks very much. And to wrap us off in our industry showcase, we have Infinity Avionics. Over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Damit from Infinity Avionics. Infinity is an Australian company specialized in sensors and processors for space applications. Our TRL-9 processors are behind a number of Australian Earth observation demonstrator missions such as UNSW-M2, CSIRO SAT-1 and Spirit mission. Infinity Avionics offers high-resolution cameras for Earth observation with flight-proven optics, which can achieve less than 40 meter GSD from a 500 kilometer orbit. We are working to achieve less than 5 meter GSD capability by 2023. Infinity Avionics is currently developing a modular imaging unit which can support optical, hyperspectral, thermal, and event sensors, which will enhance the camera product offerings from Infinity Avionics. All our cameras are designed with a clear pathway to achieve radiation-tolerant cameras so that we can support Australian LEO, GEO, and lunar missions in the future. Thank you.